Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ling from Hikvision UK and Ireland. I am product manager of access control and video intercom. So welcome to join the thermal MIMO configuration today with me. So I will, sometimes during the training, I will name the MIMO as thermal MIMO. And also sometimes I will name it as a terminal. So, so when I mention that, I'm actually mentioning the same product. So today's agenda, I will briefly introduce our thermal MIMO product very briefly. So I would actually assume that you already know a lot about the thermal MIMO that highlights the products. So I will just briefly go through that, and then I will go through more on the preparation and installation part of the product, what you need to pay attention to before you install the product. But then the main focus of today's webinar will be the local GUI configuration and also the operation on our free software, IVMS 4200. And then the last part will be the Q&A session. And I will also give you a live demo if time permits. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. I believe you've seen this already. So we have this thermal MIMO, the 7-inch one, to be able to for surface mounting, and also the floor stands, and also we have the table bracket for the table for the reception area. And another product that we have, which is not actually shown here, is our all-in-one, the 10-inch one, that comes together with this floor stand. It's a little bit different floor stand, but it comes together with it. So solution-wise, you can have the MIMO to work with our indoor station. It's a special indoor station. It says that indoor station only works with the thermal MIMO, and it's only used for receiving temperature information on the indoor station, and also receive calls as well. But the main focus today will be on the software side. So our free software, IVMS 4200, you can also use that to receive events from the thermal MIMO and also manage at the same time. And if you have bigger projects that requires multiple clients to manage the same system, then I will recommend to go with HikCentral Pro, our license-based platform. It's a very powerful platform and will be a totally different topic, so which I will not cover today in today's webinar. Okay, so as I mentioned, we do have these two different thermal MIMO. They share exactly the same firmware, also same functions. So what I will demo later is based on the 7-inch one. So the main difference between these is first the LCD screen size. So this one is a 7-inch, this is a 10-inch. Actually another big difference is that this 10-inch one comes together with this floor stand. So it's a plug and play system. You just need to plug in the power, and that's your temperature screening system. And then if you want card access, then this is the only choice that you have. It has the MiFi 1 card reader on the thermal MIMO, not on this one. This is face only. Okay, and then to go with a 7-inch one, so what I mean, this is 7-inch, this is a 10-inch. So to go with a 7-inch one, we do offer this floor stand and also the table bracket. So for the table bracket, you only need to screw those two screws. And then also we do have this indoor station. So it's a special indoor station. It's not our 2nd generation indoor station. It's a special one to go with the thermal MIMO if you would like to receive real-time alerts on reception. And it's suitable for scenarios where a PC is not that applicable, but they they do need a real-time alarm for high temperature. Okay, so the second part, the preparation. So in order to make the best of our thermal min-mode, we would recommend to install the thermal min-mode indoors and also windless environment. That also include the air conditioning wind. So it's better to avoid air conditioning wind around the thermal min-mode. And also it's better to avoid backlight, direct sunlight towards the thermal min-mode, because then it may affect the accuracy. And you can have that device 2 meters away from the light. It's more recommended. And also it's better to have enough illumination, but also we do have the IR light on the thermal min-mode, so even in the nighttime, it's you can still use that for the temperature measurement and also face recognition. So the suggested installation height, of course, it's just a pure recommendation. It always will depend on the site. So and also on the different countries. For example, if you're in Holland, I think you might need to install it a little bit higher to accommodate the average height in Holland, right? And for the working of the thermal min-mode, you need a power cable, of course. And if you need to receive alarms on the software and also manage from the software, of course, you need a network cable. But if you don't need receive alarms, then after you download, after you configure the system, then you don't need the LAN cable at all. The system itself can work by itself without any network cable. Okay, so installation wise, I would like to share with you this video. It's actually, it talks better from the video than just simply go through the presentation. So this is a 7-inch thermal min-mode. When you unbox the product, you can see those are all included. And yeah, essential tools you will need. So for surface mounting, there's more details in this video. So this is the back of the thermal min-mode. You need to remove the screws, and here it's where you can power up the system. So there's a power cable here in this position. So pause for a minute. Sorry. So just a reminder that the power cable is, the power supply is not included in the package, but it should provide together with the product. But you can also easily find a local power supply. It's only 12 volt 2 amp. Okay, so this is the back, and so I just go here. So this is the power supply, and then this is the network cable. So this is the 2 essential ones you need to connect to after you power the system. After you install, before you install the system. Okay, and then so I'll just quickly go through that. So this is the mounting plate that comes together with the product, and that matches with the product. And you need to lose that in order to put it back in. And if you install with the floor stand, so the floor stand comes with a cable loom and screws and mounting plate. So you need to install the mounting plate on the top, and then connect the cable. Yeah, I think for installation wise, it's not that difficult. So on this is the bottom of the floor stand. You can also unscrew it for more connections. So it's for the wires coming out. And you can also fix it on the ground or temporary board on the ground to make it more stable. And then after that, you just need a network cable and then power supply cable. And that's your system ready for configuration. Okay, excuse me for a sec. My PowerPoint is just stuck. I need to restart. Okay, so after you correctly install the product, then it goes to the local GUI configuration. And before that, I would like to remind you that it is always recommended to keep everything the latest version. So that includes the firmware of the product, the thermal MIMO, and also the software that you're using. So where you can find that latest one is there are two different ways, either UK portal or our Hikvision official website. Okay, so for the basic setting, so after you install the product, you connect the power and also the network cable, you'll find the activation screen on the device. So of course, all the Hikvision products you need to activate using your own password. So after that, you just need to long press. So if you want to go into the local GUI, you only need to long press on the screen, and then it will pop up a admin and a password input menu. After you input the password, then this is the menu that you're going to see in the local GUI. So in the communication settings, this is the place where you can set up your IP address. You can also enable DHCP if you would like. And also in the communication setting, you can also change the setting on the RS-45 setting of the product and also vegan setting. So just to note that if you want to connect the thermal MIMO to a third-party controller or our controller, you need to set up correctly the vegan settings in that. So for today's webinar, I'll keep it basic for now. So we use the terminal stand alone for now. And also in the information menu, you will see, you can check the device firmware version. So always you need to double check whether that firmware is the latest one to ensure that you get the best out of our product. So this, I also give you our UK portal link for the thermal MIMO firmware. So always make sure that it is the latest one. And so I would like to also give you a little bit explanation on the firmware on the thermal MIMO, because if you go on our UK portal, you'll see two different actually 3 different firmware, which we place them into 2 folders. So one folder is the access controller part. So in access controller, we have 2 different firmware. the first one is the MINMO terminal firmware. The second one is the thermal module firmware, because the thermal MINMO, we have the MINMO and also the access control terminal and also the thermographic camera on top. So there are two different firmwares for those two different modules. And then for the extension module, we have another different one. So that one basically is used for all the ports of the products. So normally you don't need to upgrade that, but if you find a new version, also please also upgrade if there's a new version. So how to upgrade the firmware is basically you need to use our software, either IVMS 4200 or HikCentral Pro. So this is on the IVMS 4200 in the remote configuration. So for the terminal, the MINMO terminal firmware and also the thermal module firmware, you need to go into the system maintenance, then go to the upgrade select type. So this is the type that I mentioned, the access controller or extension module. So if you are upgrading the terminal and thermal module, then you need to choose the access controller as the type and then choose that file. Choose the corresponding upgrading file. And if you're upgrading the MCU, then you need to choose the extension module and then choose that MCU firmware to upgrade, okay? So that's quite easy. Then after you upgrading the firmware to the latest version, of course, it's better to always have the product already have with the latest version, but we are always improving our products to give you the best performance. So it will be better to check whether your firmware in your product is the latest or not. So assuming this one has the latest firmware, you can go to the temperature setting for more temperature related parameter setup. So in the temperature setting, you can see here, you can enable the temperature measurement detection. So by default, is enabled. If in the future you don't need the temperature measurement, you can disable that function. And this threshold is also pre-configured by default. You don't actually need to set up that. And then this is for the calibration purpose, of course, and for the first timer, you also don't need to set it up. Our product, we recommend to calibrate once per year. We also provide a calibration guide, which is actually quite easy for calibration. So you can also refer to that calibration guide to decide what value you need to type it here for calibration. But for the first time, you don't need to set up. And then this is whether to determine whether the abnormal temperature, the people with abnormal temperature can open the door or not. And then this is quite essential setup. By default, it's enabled. So that means it's a temperature measurement only terminal. So it can be used for public venues such as restaurants, pubs, hotels, etc. So that means anyone can access, assuming they have a normal temperature. But if you want to use this terminal in offices where only authorized persons can get access, then you need to disable this temperature measurement only. So after you disable that, only authorized persons with normal temperature can unlock the door, okay? So the other three settings is not required for the first time, but if you are going to use a black body to increase the accuracy of the temperature measurement, then we have another different guide for that purpose. It's also quite easy, not that difficult for that. Okay, so after you set up the temperature, after you check the temperature setting, then if you are going to have the mask detection, if you require mask detection, then you need to go into the system setting for mask settings. So in the system, you need to go to the face picture setting. And here you can see, so I just explain briefly here, the liveness security level. That means actually determines the level of the anti-spoofing. So if you need a higher anti-spoofing functionality, so that means a normal 2D picture cannot grant access, you can make the level a little bit higher. And then this is the place where you have the face with mask detection setting. So this one, if disabled, then the terminal or the thermal min mode won't detect the masks. And here, if you, this is the similarity level. So when the terminal recognizes a face with mask, so that means, so if you enable this, that means a face with a mask can still be, the terminal will still try to recognize a face with masks. And then this is the similarity level. It will check when it sees a face with mask. And if you want to have the face mask enforcement, then you can enable this mask wear face mask. So that means if you enable that, the thermal min mode will not open the door for the person without a mask. So they must wear a mask to gain access. And the reminder, so that this function, it will just prompt a visual reminder on the local screen for the person without a mask. So they will not deny access, it will just give you them a visual reminder. Okay, so more explanation on the local GUI here. In the log setting, you can check the log of the person and then his or her temperature. So you can search by the ID or a card number or a person name. And please note that here we don't support a fuzzy search. So if you want to search for if you want to search for the name like Yue, you need to type his complete name. So or you can just search for by ID here. And abnormal temperature in the list will be marked as red, as you see here. And also here in the log query, you can only search for the people in the database, not for the stranger and unauthorized persons. Then if you want to export records from the thermal min mode, you can go into transfer setting. In the transfer setting, in the export attendance data, you can export the records to a USB stick. And then this will be the information in that records. So you'll find that you can also export pictures here, but please note that when you export from the thermal min mode locally, all the pictures are encrypted. You need to send back to our technical engineers to decrypt. So I would recommend you to use software if you want to export pictures. Okay, so a little bit more on the local GUI explanation. So you'll find there's an ACS setting. So within the ACS, it's more access control related parameters. But I would recommend, of course, to use the software to manage that. Okay, so to summarize, we also have a small video to give you a summary on how to activate and also how to set up simple temperature related settings. So this is the activation procedure. You need to set up your own password and choose the indoor mode. And this is after you long press the screen, you can input the password. So actually here you can see it is also showing you how to add a person locally on the product. So you can also just use it as a standalone system without any software as well. So you can add a person and you can issue a card locally here. And then you can also add a person's face also here locally. So confirm and go back, you'll see it just, it's a successfully recognize the person like that. And for the other parameters, so as I mentioned, if you want to set up more temperature related, you can go into the temperature settings. So this is specific settings for the thermal MIMO terminals. And then in the system here, you can also see the face picture for the mask detection. So this is the visual reminder that I mentioned. Okay, so that's all for the local GUI configuration. Then for the daily use recommendation, I'm giving you some tips here. So because the thermal MIMO has the thermal camera on top, so always we would recommend to wait for 90 minutes to make sure the product is warmed up to ensure accurate temperature reading. And also because the temperature of the person will be affected greatly by the outdoor environment. So if someone walks in an office from outside, and if he or she is cycling to office, for example, their temperature will be not at a normal level. So in that situation, we would recommend also to wait for 3 minutes indoors to get the most accurate temperature reading. And also it is better to take off the hat after entering the building because sometimes if you have the hat on your forehead may also have a raised temperature. And because our thermal camera is looking for a person's forehead, and then we'll measure the forehead temperature. So you need to make sure the forehead is visible when standing in front of the terminal. So if you have hairs in front of the forehead, then it's better to lift the hair to make sure that area is visible to the thermal MIMO. So this actually gives you a recommended route to present yourself in front of the thermal MIMO, because if there's a place, if a scenario where there are a lot of people in a queue, because the thermal MIMO has a quite wide FOV, we don't want other people to affect the reading of the person in front of it. So this is purely our recommendation. Of course, it needs to adapt to the real scenario. So we would recommend person to walk from left to right and then to stand in front of it. So the first person standing in front of it, the second person will not be in the view of the terminal. So it makes sure that the terminal is only reading the person standing in front of it. Okay, so that's the recommendation for the daily use. And now I would like to share with you a very nice video about all the features that you can achieve on the thermal MIMO together with the software. So this is the 7-inch thermal MIMO. So we do have 2 different modes for the thermal MIMO. The first modes, it can be used for public access. So no matter who it is, as anyone who has the normal temperature can gain access, or it can just be used as a temperature check only system. So you also don't need to connect to a door. So it just used for temperature check purpose. So it's suitable for public venues, shops, restaurants, etc. So you see here, so anyone who has normal temperature will gain access, and if it's not, the access will be denied. And then you can also program the system to have the face mask detection. So he needs to have a mask to gain access, and also with a normal temperature to gain access. And then for the second mode, as I mentioned, you can program the system to only allow authorized persons to gain access. So for offices, factories, etc., you can program it to be used for authorized access. And you can also use it with face or card or QR code. So this is the first one, shows you the face access. And the second one is the card access. So you need to show your card and then measure your temperature. And then the QR code, you need to show your QR code and then show your face and for the temperature measurement. And with the face recognition technology, for strangers, it will also prompt up a stranger alert if it is a stranger. So the access will be denied. And this is the anti-spoofing. So you can see the picture on the phone will not allow access. So this shows you if you want to face mask wearing enforcement, you can also have that, wearing mask and normal temperature, and he is authorized persons. And for visitors, you can also call the software, call the center. So this actually shows you the Hack Central calling function. So you can unlock the door also from the software side. And the terminal can give you a very long authentication distance from 0.3 meters to 2 meters. So you can have that very long distance. So the product, as I already showed you before, this is the 7-inch, and with the floor stand, the table bracket, and the turnstile bracket. And then for the 10-inch one, the all-in-one version, it comes together with the floor stand. Okay, so I hope you now get more understanding on the features on the thermal MIMO, and let's see how we can program it in our free software IVMS 4200. Okay, so first up, basic settings and real-time monitoring on the IVMS 4200. So the first mode, the face and temperature mode for authorized access. Of course, you need to, the first step, you need to add the device on the software, and then because it's authorized access, so you need to set up the database. So you need to register person on the 4200, and you need to apply the person. So these 3 basic steps are what you also need to do on our normal access control terminals and our access control controllers. So we actually don't cover it here, but during the live demo, I will show you briefly how to do it. And then after you register the person and apply the person from the software to the thermal terminal, then you can go to the monitoring page. So in the monitoring page, you can check, so this is the door controlled by the thermal MIMO, and you can check all the real-time events in the monitoring, and also you can receive quick pop-up alarms. So on the real-time events, you'll see the temperature of the person and also whether he or she has mask on or not. And for the real-time pop-up alarm, you can have is no mask prompt and also abnormal temperature prompt. So for example, if you have the abnormal temperature prompt, it will look like this. So abnormal temperature would give you the temperature information and the person name. So it will give you a person picture and also the captured picture from the thermal MIMO. So some note here, it's good that you know that if abnormal temperature is detected, the device itself, the thermal MIMO itself, will trigger the device alarm output automatically. So if you want to wire to other alarms, you can also connect to the alarm output of the thermal MIMO. And this is automatically programmed. You don't need to configure it at all. And for the authorized access, so you can see also here, the snapshots, it will give you an optical snapshot and also a thermal snapshot. So this is for the authorized access. It will provide you with two snapshots. And for the snapshots, you don't need a storage server on the 4200. The product itself will upload the pictures by default. But then for the temperature measurement only mode, so for public venues, you can only have the thermal picture for now. There may be a firmware update in the future to have an optical image uploading, but for now it's a thermal image for now. Okay, you can also see the temperature of that person as well. So in this case, if you want to have, if you want to know who is that, for now you can actually add our optical camera on the thermal MIMO to a recorders for 24/7 live view and the recording. So you can also search back if needed. Okay, and on 4200 in the remote configuration, you can also set up very basic parameters on the thermal MIMO on the temperature related settings. So here the fast temperature measurement is to determine whether it is a temperature only mode or phase plus temperature mode. Okay, so if you tick that, if you check that, that means it's a temperature only mode. If you don't check that, that means it's for authorized access. So you need to download the database to the thermal MIMO, so all the persons in the database will gain access. The strangers will not. Then this is the door not open when temperature is abnormal. And then the mask wearing enforcement is also here. And also the temperature alarm threshold can also be set up here as well. And how to search and export events, then you will find it in the event center. So in the event center, you can go to the event search. So to search out all the temperature related events, you need to choose the device type as access control, because by default it's all type. So it's all the types. But if you want to search for specifically the temperature related events, you must select access control to get the temperature information. And also if you want to search filter by person name, you can show more. You can click on the show more. It will show you other filter condition that you can use to search. And if you want to export the events, then it is in the export all session. So after you search all the events, if you want to export those events, you can export all. And so, and export all, you can search, you can export the logs or pictures or logs and pictures. So the event logs it looks like this. It will give you the captured picture path. So the pictures will be saved in the path that you predefined. And also the person, the temperature, whether it's abnormal or not, the event time, etc., etc. So all those information is in the logs. And also the images will be exported in the defined folder as well. And in terms of the alarm handling on the free software, you need to go into the maintenance and management, and then go into the access event setting. So in here, you need to choose the so the main folder, because there are different events in the doors, in the readers, in the alarm input. So you need to click on the main folder to see the abnormal temperature event. So here, you can edit the priority of that event. You can edit the linkage of that event. So let's go into more details on the priority. So you can, if you want to set up a high priority of that event, you can definitely do that. And then in the linkage, you can see you can have the audible warning. You can send email by our free software IVMS 4200. And you can also have a pop-up window on the software. And there's also a link camera setting. So on our IVMS 4200, you can also add other cameras. So after you adding other cameras, you can also use here the link camera to link to other cameras. So those cameras will also be shown in the pop-up window when, if there's an abnormal temperature event happening. So a little bit more about email setting. Of course, you need to go into the system configuration for the email setup. So for the email setup, you need to correctly set up all the parameters. If you're using Gmail, these are the port number and SMTP server you need to set up. But then for the Gmail, the password is not the password to log in your Gmail account. It is rather the password, the app password that you set up on the Google account. So please also go into the Google account, into the security session to set up the app passwords. And this is the password that you need to enter here. And so after you set up correctly, you can also send a test email to check whether it is set up correctly. So after you set up correctly and after you set up the event linkage correctly, this is the example email that you are going to see in your email box. So if it's a abnormal temperature, it will give you the event time, who is that, if it is authorized access mode, and then the temperature of that person, okay? And also whether he or she has mask or not. So unfortunately, on IVMS 4200, it's only the text that you're going to receive, not the images, not the snapshots. So if you want snapshots in your email, then I would recommend you to use Hike Central Pro to have that function. Okay, and so for the pop-up alarms, so this is the priority that you're going to see also here, so high priority. So on the event center, on the real-time events, if you want to pop-up image, you need to make sure that you have enabled the alarm triggered pop-up image, because by default it's disabled. So you may find it why there's no pop-up. So you need to make sure that you enable the alarm triggered pop-up image. So after you enable that, so this is actually already enabled. This is the pop-up image you're gonna see. So on the video section is the linked camera view. So you remember when you set up the linkage, there's a linked camera. So this is the linked camera view. And then also it will give you a snapshot. So this is not authorized access. This is a public access mode. So it will only give you a thermal image. So if it is an authorized mode, then it will give you an optical and thermal image. And for the for this pop-up, you can see if at the same time there are multiple alarms, there will also it will also give you an option to go next to or previous to see all the different alarms. So for all the events related to the thermal mean mode, we also have the no mask events and the skin surface temperature measured events. So actually that pop-up that I showed here is the skin surface temperature measured event. So anyone who's got his or her skin temperature, surface temperature measured, it can give you a pop-up or email or an audible warning if you want. So I hope you still remember that I mentioned in the monitoring session, you can also enable a quick alarm pop-up, enable no mask prompt, and enable abnormal temperature prompt. So this is different from what I mentioned previously in the event settings. So in the monitoring, it will only give you this simple pop-up. That's it. So here you can see, you can go previous or next to see more alarms. But in the monitoring, you can only receive one alarm, one pop-up alarm. So I will recommend you to go to the maintenance and management for more, for better alarm pop-up. But if you just want a quick pop-up, you can use this. But then it will, the latest events will cover the previous one, and you cannot see the previous one. So just a note. And others, including time attendance records on the IVMS 4200. I will not go into deeper on how to set up the time attendance. We do have guide to guide you through the time attendance rule settings, but I just would like to show you the record that you can see after you set up correctly the time attendance settings. So you'll see this is also the temperature information that you can see in the time attendance records. So please note that you can only have that in the records session, the temperature information. If you want to have it, if you want to export the report, in the report, unfortunately, there's no temperature information for now. Okay, so if you want to see the records, then you have the temperature. So last part, I will quickly show you a HikCentral Pro demonstration. I will not go into detail on how to set up, but this gives you an idea on what it looks like on HikCentral Pro with a thermal min mode. So on HikCentral Pro, you can see the live view of the thermal min mode, and if someone comes in, and you can also see a real-time pop-up of that person. And then this is the pop-up image you can have as well on the HikCentral Pro. So the event pop-up. So this is a no mask pop-up. So I just go back here. So you can see a little difference here is that on the HikCentral Pro, you can also have the temperature embedded on the picture snapshot. And this is for the high temperature alarm. So you can also see abnormal temperature and what's the temperature is that. And in the picture, it will also give you the temperature. So the QR code can be also issued from the IVMS 4200 and HikCentral Pro. And you can call the HikCentral as well. And this is the place where we don't have it on the free software, so the report session. So you can have the skin surface temperature analysis report on the HikCentral Pro so that you can gain a better understanding on how many people have come in with abnormal temperature, how many people have with no mask. So it gives you a report in the HikCentral Pro, not on the free software. You can also export the reports from the HikCentral Pro as well. So this is the report that you can have on the HikCentral Pro. And you can also have the attendance report as well. And on HikCentral Pro, so those are the records that you can search person and then the temperature of that person. And you can also export those reports. So those are the reports that you can export it from the HikCentral Pro as well. Okay, so that's for the presentation part. And now I would like to give you a live demo on the software side, so to give you better understanding on the thermal MIMO with the free software. Okay, so a little note again on the software side. So if you're going to use our thermal MIMO with a software, it is better to just use one software, either 4200 or HikCentral Pro. You cannot have two softwares to manage the same system. They will give you some headaches. So I will always recommend you to just stick to one software to manage one device. So always, as I mentioned, it's better to check whether your software is the latest version. So this is the latest one that we support, the thermal MIMO, the 3305 version. So this is the 4200. You may also hear about 4200 AC version. So that's our access control only version. So as access control and the video intercom only version. So on that version, you cannot add other cameras. You cannot add other recorders. But the advantage of that AC version is it's lighter in installation. So if customers don't need other cameras, don't need other recorders, then I will recommend you to just use AC version. But if you want cameras, recorders, linkage, then of course 4200 is the one to go. Okay, so in the thermal MIMO related part, of course you need to add a device. I already add the device here in the device setting. So I named the product as Office Entrance. And this is the 7-inch product that you'll see. And here in operation, there's a remote configuration. In the remote configuration is the place where you can upgrade the product. So you can also check the firmware version. This is by today is the latest, but I cannot guarantee that by the end of June, this is the latest. Maybe we have a new version coming up at the end of June. So always check, please always check on the UK portal. So by today, this is the latest firmware of the 7-inch thermal MIMO. And in the system maintenance is the place where you can upgrade the product, choose the type accordingly, as I mentioned. And in the others, in access control parameters is the basic parameters that you can set up. It does not include all the settings. So basic settings that you can set up. So for now, phase temperature measurement, fast temperature measurement, excuse me, is checked. So that means it's a public access mode. So it's a temperature measurement only mode. So we are gonna see how it looks like. And that's the remote configuration part. So add the device, okay, check. Okay, we have successfully added the device. And of course, and also just a note in the group, double check whether this product has already a group created. Usually when you add the product in the first time, if it is online, it will automatically create a group for you. But if it is offline, then there will not be a group. So you need to add the group manually. And another note is that it's always we always advise to check this part, device arming control. So here you see this is our product and it is armed status. So the armed status means that that product, that thermal MIMO is currently armed by this software, by this 4200. why I mentioned that is sometimes if you have the product already set up by one PC, and then you take that PC away, and then maybe you need to configure it again and use another PC, another software, and you add the product on the other PC, and you may find that the arming status is unarmed because the product is previously armed by the first PC. So you need to make sure that this is armed status so you can gain the most out of the thermal MIMO on your 4200. And also another note is in the tool section, it is always best to also check whether the time is synced. So always check the time sync. Okay, then so after you add the device, then device management, you can, so now the product is public access. So it's a temperature only mode. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you how it looks like on the temperature measurement mode. So I'm not sure whether you heard authenticated in my product. So you see there's a pop-up. So this is me with a normal temperature. So it's abnormal, sorry. So it's not an abnormal temperature, and it's a skin surface measured. Yeah. So this is what you're gonna see on the temperature measurement mode. So now I'm going to change it into an authorized access mode. So you need to go into the others. You need to uncheck this. So uncheck this means it's a authorized mode. You need to download the face, the person database. So how to download the person database? Then, so authorized mode means it is an access control terminal. So all the access control terminal, you need to first create the person. So it's there's a access control setting here. You need to first create the person database, the person library, and then download all the person into the access control terminals. And then after you've done this step, you can go into the monitoring for real-time monitoring. And if you want time attendance, you go into the time attendance setting. So this is quite logical here. So in the person, you can add different organizations. So I just keep the new organization here. In the new organizations, you can add the person here. So I already add the person now. If you want to add new, you can click on the add and then choose name, add a face, add a card, etc. So I already add my face here. And then a card. So for the card enrollment, you can either create a manual card. So this is my manual card. I manually type in the card. But if you just use the face, you don't need the card actually. If you are going to issue the card, then you can either use, so in the settings, you can either use our card enrollment station or remotely using the card reader on the thermal MIMO. So the office entrance is the thermal MIMO. So you can also choose that to read the card from the thermal MIMO. But usually I will recommend to go through the to use the our enrollment station, because it will be very weird to go to the thermal MIMO, which is already installed on the office entrance, to type your card. So it's always more logic to use a desktop enrollment station. Okay, so this is how you enroll the cards. And so this is the basic information you need for the face enrollment. Name, face, actually card is not required, it's not compulsory for the face. Okay, if you want a card, of course you can use that. So after you have, so you can create all the persons here. And you can also batch issue the cards if you need it. And so import export is where you can batch import users as well using that import function. Get from device. So if in some circumstances the the thermal MIMO is already pre-configured, there are already data person library in the thermal MIMO, you can use the get from device to get all the person information from the device to the software. Okay, so after you have the person library, you go into the access control module. So in the access control module, also you need to follow the logic here. So the template is where you can create where during what time the person can gain access. And then after you set up the template, you go to the authorization, the access group. So in the access group is where you can you link the person to which door he or she can gain access and during what time. So this is when, this is the person, who, this is where they can gain access. Okay, so you can name the access group as whatever you want. So this is my 24/7 access template. So you can have all the authorized, or you choose your own template. This is a 24/7 template, time template. This is the person I need to gain access. And this is the place where Lin can gain access. So after you save, because now I already applied, so normally it's to be applied status here. And you need to choose this and apply all to device. So there are two different apply here. Apply all to device, that means it will swipe all the previous access groups in the thermal MIMO and then download the current one that you set up. Applying changes is it will keep all the previous setup on the product, but then it will only apply what you have changed to that product. Okay, so after you apply all, then it will show you that it's all applied. And then after this step, now you can use the authorized person to gain access. So let's go back to the monitoring again to check what it looks like. Okay, so there's a pop-up here. So you can see the event, it will give you the account number, the person name, and also with the temperature of that person. And also it will give you the linked, the snapshot, optical one, and the thermal one, and the linked capture picture. And also the abnormal temperature, etc., etc. Okay, so if, for example, I want a quick pop-up alarm, you can enable that. So let's see how it looks like. Hope there's a pop-up. Yeah, so that's a no mask pop-up. So with the temperature and then the person pop-up. Okay, so this is a quick pop-up. As I mentioned, it will cover the previous one. So if you want to have more alarm handling, as I mentioned, it's in the maintenance, it is in the event center. Okay, so in the event center, you can see all the real-time events here as well. You can enable the alarm. So by default, it's like this. You can enable that, then it will give you more triggered pop-up image, but you need to pre-configure it. And in the event search is where you need to choose the event as device type as access control and then search, and it will give you all the previous events. Okay, export all is here. So to set up the events pop-up and the email linkage, it's in the event configuration in the access event, and choose this one, not this one, because if you go into here, you can see there's no abnormal. You can also check. Try to search, there's no abnormal temperature alarm. So you need to choose the main folder, and then it's actually here, but if you cannot find it, then you just type in the keyword. Okay, so if you choose the abnormal temperature, you can add it to the priority, and then add linkage. So in the linkage is where you can link it to send email or pop-up window. You can also link to a camera. So this camera is actually from the thermal MIMO itself. Okay, so now this is my, okay, I'll keep it simple. So I will edit no mask pop-up for now. Okay, so this is my no mask pop-up. And then go into the real-time event. It's enabled. You can also have the audible warning, but you need to keep the audio on.
Authenticated.
Yeah, so you'll see a pop-up here. This is the video from the thermal MIMO. And this is the snapshot you're gonna get from the no mask event. Okay, you can go to, if there are more events, you can go to previous and next for more events, to see more events. Okay, I think that's all I would like to share with you today. And it's already over 1 hour now. And I hope you can, after today's configuration training, you get more understanding on how to make our thermal MIMO work. So I'll go to the Q&A session if there's any questions. So the time attendance guides, I will share with you after today's training by email. You will receive an email on that. If you have more questions, please type in the Q&A session. And if not, I will wait for another 5 minutes. And if you don't have any questions, you're free to leave the webinar. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, I'll also share the presentation by email as well. So there's a question, can you install the IVMS 4200 software more than one PC? Yes, you can, but you can only use one PC to manage one product, like multiple products. Like one product, one thermal MIMO can only be managed by one PC with the free software IVMS 4200. If you want that thermal MIMO to be managed by multiple PC, then you need to use Hikvision Pro. So any more questions?